Everybody, I am Jody Ashbrook. I am joined today by Stacy Shipman. So
Ah,
Stacy and I actually have known each other. We were connected. Stacy, was it like 3 years ago, 4 years
years
ago now?
ago for Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, yes. So, fellow entrepreneurs, owner of Open Doors Yoga Studios in Hingham, Massachusetts, and president of Dr. Jody Inc. Stacy and I actually collaborate quite a bit, and because Stacy is a fellow entrepreneur herself. Stacey?
hmm you want me to tell them what I do now? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So I host a variety of events that help people live, work, communicate better, and then I also work with folks on their own marketing and promotion and communication to get the word out about what they do. And Jody and I have collaborated on some of the events that I host. She's been a presenter, which is awesome, and we've just become good friends and colleagues and idea sharers.
Yes. And so speaking of that, speaking of being idea sharers, and one of our regular conversations, because Stacy and I like to bounce ideas off of each other and get feedback and just say, hey, what do you think? Or what about this? And we recently resonated with each other on this topic because I think it was earlier that day we had both seen something that came through in our emails, or I had seen it and I was sharing it with you, or I was having one of those moments where I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get through this kind of days. And it was one of those moments where I was struggling, and I saw this email that said, start your six-figure business in 4 months. And then Stacy jumped right in. She's like, yeah, like, really? Is that real? How does that even happen? And so we got on this whole conversation and we got really passionate about it. And we said, you know what, being entrepreneurs, we really need to talk and just share that, gosh, I mean, the stuff that you don't see, the stuff that you don't hear, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. And I think Stacy recently had a conversation that she's going to share with you that really kind of sparked this and drove this point home. And I loved your answer to the question that you got, Stacy, because I think it's so true.
Yeah, so recently a friend asked me if starting a business was hard. And I quit my job 10 years ago. So I've been on this path for a decade now. And she asked me, is starting a business hard? And I looked at her at first and I was like, yes. And then I thought about it and I changed my mind. And I was like, no, starting the business isn't hard. Running it, marketing it, making sure it makes money, keeping it going, figuring out all the ins and outs that you need to figure out and make the relationships that you need to get the business off the ground and sustainable, that's the hard part. That is the hard part. It's key because anybody can hang a shingle, put up a website that says I started a business. But the key is, how do you keep it going? Do you have the grit, the determination, the support, the people that you need to talk to make it happen? That's the hard part.
Well, and I think it's so important, the conversations that you and I have on a regular basis, and we were talking about this a little bit, is the reality is, on the outside looking in, it may appear as though, oh gosh, so-and-so's doing this now, or they make it look so easy, or they just published a book, but the behind the scenes, the reality where you feel like you're the only person who's in this space, you're doubting yourself. You're thinking, what? I can't do this. It's not possible. Financially, sometimes you look at the numbers and you're like, this isn't working. What was I thinking?
Who am I to do this?
Who am I? Yeah. What was like, and so when I talked with you, when we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, I think you and I were probably both in that same space. And it's like, it's comforting to go, okay, just take a deep breath. Like, it is normal. This is the normalcy of what it's really about. It's not, have this great idea and start this six-figure business and do something that you love and it looks all easy, right?
Right.
In reality, there's nothing easy about it.
Nothing easy about it. I have this conversation a lot with people. they with solopreneurs in particular, and when you're at networking events, everybody's like, "How's it going?" and everybody's like, "Oh, it's great," But I've had very private conversations with people who are like, "I really wish I could just say, you know what, it sucks right now. Things are really hard. I don't have a pipeline. I don't have any prospects. Like I feel really stuck." Like whatever it is that they're struggling with. So many people I've had these private conversations with who are like, it sucks right now. I need to figure out what to do next, kind of thing. And especially with social media, which is very easy to what's the word?
Make it look one way.
Make it look curate
Okay.
what's happening. It's easy to just put out all the good stuff and less of the struggle. But when we can share the struggle, at least I found in my circles and with you, then it's like, oh, okay, all right. So this is normal. I feel a little bit better about myself. And all right, now let's figure out kind of where I go from here. But that's why I think the support, having that support, like real true support where you can bring your struggles and your upset and your freakouts and your success and celebration is like key, is so key. And I think if you don't have that from the foundation, as a foundation, then like forget it. You got to figure out how to get that. At least that's true for me.
Well, and as you're talking, this popped into my mind. You know how you see those inspirational memes, with inspirational sayings, right? I have a couple of those. I know you have some.
Yeah.
See them all over now. But what if you saw one that actually said, like, I'm crying today. I don't know. I have nothing in my bank account. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then it's like, from the determined entrepreneur. I mean, like that's reality. Like, or my pipeline is non-existent. Things suck today. But just what you said, like the honesty of the situation. Like, let's be real. Let's really get real about what it takes and what that process is actually like. And I know you've said a lot, and I know you have kind of a framework of what you've learned along the way in your 10 years of what it takes. And you talk a lot about a support network and how important that is. And don't you have like 2 or 3 other key components that you learned you have to have in order to be a successful entrepreneur?
I do. So a couple of things. One is the support network. 2 is, I call it dealing with yourself. You got to be able to deal with yourself when all of this happens. You need to have some tools to kind of manage the thoughts and the stories that might not be taking you in the right direction, whether it's yoga, writing, whatever it is for you, gardening, running. But you need to be able to manage and reel those in, recognize how they do help. I mean, fear has a place. I don't want that to go unnoticed. But then say, okay, so here it is. This is how I'm feeling. This is the reality of what's happening right now. What tools do I have to help me move through this roadblock? So that's a huge piece of it. The second one is definitely that support community. And for me, the third one is to remember that, I have a voice. Like what I'm doing matters. I have a right to put, this work into the world. There's people who are looking for, what I'm offering, and that I have the right to do that. And not like in an overly privileged way.
4 months.
What?
And you'll make 6 figures in 4 months following.
Totally. 4 days. No.
Right. I mean, you brought up one thing earlier too that I think is true to an extent. People talk like you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Your work has to be your passion. And there's no doubt about that because you're working around the clock sometimes. There are times when you go and you don't sleep, or you're working on things, and you really have to be connected to what you're doing. So there is truth that follow your passion, follow your heart. But if it were really that easy, then I think maybe more people would take the leap, right? But you have to be connected to what you do. You have to have a passion.
Definitely.
And then be willing to put in all of the work behind it to actually bring that passion to life and figure it out. Because I think the other piece, and you and I know this well, I know we've had many conversations of like, well, here's where I think I'm going this month, like this is the direction I think I'm headed. And then we talk to each other the next month and we're like, well, we tried that. This didn't really work. So I'm steering it. I'm going in a different direction. Like you have to be willing to, you don't always have the clear path. And I think a lot of times people want a clear path.
I went to a workshop several years ago. It was called Action Trumps Everything, and they don't do the workshop anymore, which is too bad. But it was for intra and entrepreneurs, so whether you worked for an organization or had your own business. And one of the things that I still remember, I think it's almost like 10 years ago that I went to this, but they said, put your passion aside for now and think about what you desire from your work. And like that shift in question, and I've had people argue with me like they're the same. And I'll tell you why they're not the same. Because what happened for me, because at the time I was very much into health and fitness and wellness and stuff. I started my entrepreneurial journey as a yoga teacher, fitness trainer, and all that. And I very quickly realized I didn't really like doing that. I still had a passion for what those tools could do for people, but I didn't want to be the trainer. And I went into this program and I'm like, well, if this is my passion, but this isn't the work I want to do, then what does that mean? So for them to say, put your passion aside and think about what it is you desire, it was a huge shift because all of a sudden I looked at it and I was like, what I want is for people to have access to these tools and information.
Yeah. And
knowing that, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to teach it. I just need to connect them to it.
Yep.
It shifted.
That's a great question. It does.
The whole way I did my business. It shifted everything.
Mindset shift. Yeah.
It was huge. It was such a huge. And so it was just like, put that aside for now and then figure out what it is you actually want. Like, why are you even doing? It's kind of like the why. It's like, why are you even doing this at all?
Yep.
And that's a huge thing today. I mean, everybody's talking about the why and all that. And I think I am a believer in knowing that because it does help me. I have a very logical brain. I've told you that before. And so knowing why I'm doing something helps me to actually do it. But you were talking about the passion thing, and a friend of mine just sent me something on Facebook, and it said, do what you love and the money will follow. And then underneath that, it said, I took a selfie with my dog, took a nap in my underwear, drank wine, and ate pizza. Now I wait. And it cracked me up because it's like, definitely you have to be committed to what you're doing, and you have to have an interest and a real desire to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. But your audience also has to want to buy it.
Yep. So true.
Buy different things for different reasons.
Well, I think you and I could probably go on for quite some time. And I think there's probably a lot of pieces of this that we could have more discussion on.
Yeah.
There's no doubt a huge population of entrepreneurs out there at any stage in their journey. Mm-hmm. And the reality is I think what you and I've learned and we've come to value and what's really helped us is building that network and having that group of similar like-minded people and thinkers, because the reality is when it comes down to it, you can feel like you're on an island by yourself a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And when you try to share things maybe with people that aren't thinking how you're thinking, and they kind of look at you like you've got three heads or, mm-hmm. Why don't you sleep 10 hours a night or why, whatever, why are you doing this? It's always nice to have that group and that network. And I think that's part of why we want to have this conversation too, is just to say, hey, like you're not alone. The reality is when you feel like you're alone, you're not. And it's a matter of just building and creating that network that can say, I've been there or I was there yesterday. Right. I'm sure I'll be there again next week. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, it fluctuates, right? There's good days and bad days depending on what's happening. Sleep's really important to me. I just have to say, I do get my 8 hours every night.
Well, good for you.
I have to.
I'm getting better in that category.
I have. But, we're both coming from a self-care kind of industry, right? And it really is, the support community, I think, is a foundation, but so is in your own, ability to manage your well-being.
Yes.
Mind, body, all that stuff. So having those tools, those are huge foundational pieces.
Well, I have a feeling, I'm sure that you and I will be having a second version of this. Chapter 2 will continue. of our video series. Let's get real. What's it really like to create, run, and optimize your own business? So thanks, Stacy, for chatting with me,
Thanks,
for
Jody.
riffing with me today. And I hope that we will see you all again soon. If you want to reach out to either of us, you can reach out to Stacy at stacyshipman.com.
Yeah.
Me at jodyashbrook.com. So feel free to reach out and chat, feedback, whatever. We'd love to help and support.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.